Thank you for tuning into ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast show, as always, and this particular special January 2024 drop of listener feedback. Thank you all again for listening, as I know your options of available podcasts to listen to are plentiful, and I greatly appreciate you tuning into mine. I do pay attention to feedback you give me at JLeonardDetroit across most social media platforms, or jleonard@terrorstrikes.info, or the contact tab at josephmleonard.us. And again, Leonard looks like Leonard, but it's actually Polish origin, Leonard without an O in it. I'm not sure what the full last name was at what point before it got chopped into being Leonard. One of these days I have to finish my lineage ancestry background research to discover that was never passed down directly to us all. But I wanted to read on air one particular piece of feedback from John from South Carolina via Gab social media, because I feel it warrants a follow-up to the season 1, episode 21, God and Guns plus Sports show that he is reacting to. John from South Carolina on Gab states, at JLeonardDetroit, I liked the show. I'm not a big sports guy, but the stories were cool to hear. You quoted some solid scripture references that back up self-defense, which is always sound. The Bible never forbids self-defense, and believers are allowed to defend themselves and their families. But the fact that we are permitted to defend ourselves does not necessarily mean we must do so in every situation. Knowing God's heart through reading his word and relying on, quote, the wisdom that comes from heaven, unquote, he shows, James 3:17, will help us know how to best respond in situations that might call for self-defense or some form of violence response to others' aggression in general. Not every situation calls for shots fired, but when it does, do not hesitate, he says. Some folks say it isn't biblical, but scriptures do point to that option. Again, thank you for that feedback, and my belief that it's important to follow up with my response to him on Gab, which was, thanks for the listen, even more so for your feedback, reaction, and kind words. And yes, I agree, even with Exodus 22:2 about if a thief is caught breaking in at night and is struck a fatal blow, the defender is not guilty of bloodshed. Scripture. That does not mean one should automatically open fire on any and all trespassers to your property or intruder. Certainly, I never meant to give any such implied thought as other respect for life scriptures and context matters, and certainly hope no one somehow reads that into the season 1, episode 21, God and Guns plus Sports episode. As to one must understand that today, the left has tried to coddle actual criminals and weaken our Second Amendment rights and right to also be secure in persons, papers, and property via their duty to retreat laws, they call them, violations of our right to self-defense in many locations, and your local laws, whether constitutional or not, and need of challenge, do matter. We need to be aware of them. That, I think, is an important and needed clarification to the episode, in case, as John implies, someone might read into the show something that wasn't there, was never intended. to be there, as I do these shows raw and uncut, generally unscripted. Yes, sometimes I have notes that I then read from, or a bit or piece out of the corresponding, correlating thelibertybeacon.com article that corresponds and correlates to any given show and drops on the same Saturday as the ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast show, of usually the same title, though sometimes they may be titled somewhat something slightly different. I wanted to read John's feedback. Thank you all again for listening, tuning in, or watching at J. Leonard Detroit on YouTube and Rumble behind the scenes sneak peek video version for those who prefer the video behind the scenes look at the show, and any and all of your feedback, though I'm obviously not going to make this a habit of doing a listener feedback segment, but on occasion it might be necessary to add additional clarification as to the season 1 episode 21 show, as I just did. So thank you all again. Take care. God bless.
It is a myth that terrorism stopped during COVID. Unfortunately, mainstream media opted to prioritize pandemic hysteria over promoting all news. Terrorism continues. Simply hoping that it doesn't affect you is not a strategy. The new book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, featured on The Author Show, is now available in paperback from bookstores, online, or as an ebook exclusively through Amazon Kindle. Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you by Joseph M. Leonard. Order today.